I want to talk to you about just one strategy. This is just one amongst many strategies. One strategy to really be happier. And if you'd like to be happier, this might be the thing you should listen to. Is there anybody here that would like to be happier than you are now? Wow. So we are not already at 100% happiness. First thing that I want to say about happiness is, one thing you can do for happiness is, the Oktoberfest is coming up. And there are two ways to be happy with the Oktoberfest. One is, you can buy a ticket today and feel really happy that you're supporting the school. There is, again and again, psychologists they've studied this. There are studies on this. There's a lot of data to back this up. When you give away what you have for something that you believe is good, it creates happiness in you. Isn't that weird how God made us? In fact, here's an interesting study. They gave college students $20, and the control group was told, go spend it however you want. They were right outside a coffee shop. Go into the coffee shop and spend it however you want. Afterwards, they would ask them, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? The experimental group was given the same $20 and said, go inside and spend it on someone else. And when they came out, on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you? The people who gave away their $20 were happier than the people who spent it on themselves. So one way to be happy is to go ahead and buy an Oktoberfest ticket, knowing that this is going to help our school, and if you believe in Catholic schools and believe in the parish. But the second way to be happy with Oktoberfest is not only to buy a ticket, but then to go to it. You don't have to go to it. You do have to buy a ticket. You don't have to go to it, but you could go to it. It's going to be a great event. I know, why would you buy a ticket if you're not going? Just to support it, just to give away to help. So that's one thing you can do. Here's the actual main thing that I want to talk about. What if your approach in life was not to have the mind that anybody owes me anything? What do I mean by this? How often do we say in our minds, in our hearts, God, you owe me? Or do we say this to our spouses, or we think this about our spouses? I did so much today, and they owe me. They owe me respect. They owe me some gratitude. They owe me a better attitude. They owe me. How many of us in our work? How many of us are in our work look at our coworkers, or look at our bosses, or look at our customers and think they owe me, or you owe me? Jesus gives us a parable about this. The parable is the master, the owner of a farm. The servants come in after a hard day's work. Is the master going to say, oh, thank you so much for doing the job that I hired you for. Let me prepare a meal for you? No. The master is going to say, oh, good, you're done. Prepare dinner for me, and then you can eat afterwards. Because that's how that works, right? Now, the servant who says, I just worked all day, get it yourself, is not going to be a happy servant. And I don't just mean he's going to be, I just mean that's not the right mind to have if you're the servant in a household like this, right? Like imagine Downton Abbey, if you've ever seen Downton Abbey. If the people downstairs, the servants of the household, told, Lord Grantham, get your own tea, Lord Grantham. It's right there. Why do I have to pour it for you? No. But this attitude of entitlement is where I'm going with this. That's where Jesus is going with this. It's not about fair. Jesus is not giving us a parable about fairness. Jesus is not giving us, in other places, Jesus gives us parables about fairness. In many places, he gives us parables about fairness, about treating people with kindness, about loving those. This is a different parable. It has a different point. 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 It has a diff This parable is not about the wealthy landowner who doesn't treat his servants with fairness. This is about the attitude that we have to have. The attitude that we have to have, because how many of us can stand before God and say, you owe me? Does God owe you anything? You might say, well, maybe he owes Father something. I mean, he's made so many sacrifices, chastity and obedience and all of that. Well, yes, I have done all of that. But I can't stand before God and say, you owe me. Because even as a priest, or even more, how many of you know our sisters who live here with us and teach in our school? How many of you know them? None of you know them. Some of you know them. You've seen them. How many of you have seen them? Okay. Sisters, poverty, chastity, obedience. They live in community. They have to wear those habits. I think they like their habits. In fact, I heard this from one of the sisters in Nashville. Back in the 60s, after the Second Vatican Council, when all of the religious orders were reconsidering how are they going to live their lives, the Nashville Dominicans needed to redesign their habits so that they could drive safely, because they had these things that were kind of sticking off their veils and they couldn't drive. So they went to redesign their habits. Well, it turns out that a European designer named Christian Dior owed Mother a favor and redesigned their habits. The sisters are wearing Dior. It's not a lie. But they've given up so much, yet none of them could stand before God and say, I've given up so much, you owe me. I've made so many sacrifices, you owe me. Not even St. Dennis. Do you know St. Dennis? St. Dennis, this is not me. I'm not canonizing myself. Wouldn't that be fun? We could canonize ourselves. St. Dennis, his feast day is this week on October the 9th. That's why I bring him up. How many of you know the story of St. Dennis? Some of you. Some of you know the story of St. Dennis. Well, now you're all going to hear it because you didn't raise your hands. St. Dennis was a missionary. He traveled from Rome into a Roman territory called Gaul. Today is France. He went to a little island on a river. The river is the Seine River. The island today is called Paris, but it's more than the island. It's the whole city around it. He and his companions at this Roman outpost, they converted some of the pagans. Many of the pagans were angry, didn't like it, didn't want to hear about God, didn't want to hear about Jesus, didn't want to be told that worshiping the trees was dumb. And they took Dennis and his companions on the top of a hill on the bank of the river, which today there's a church there called Sacré-Cœur, Sacred Heart, on the Hill of Martyrs. And on the Hill of Martyrs, all of their heads were chopped off. Thunk, 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 thunk. And when Dennis's head was chopped off, the last one, he stood up. And he picked up his head. He held his head in his hands. And he preached the gospel and resurrection from the dead. And all of them became Christian that day. And you would have too if you had been there. St. Dennis did collapse. St. Dennis cannot stand, even though he died a martyr. And think of all the martyrs you've ever heard of. Maximilian Kolbe, or Teresa Benedicta of the Cross, also known as Edith Stein, or Miguel Pro, San Miguel Pro, or San Juan Sanchez del Rio, or the Coptic martyrs that were killed by Islamist terrorists on the beach in Libya a few years ago in 2015. All the martyrs, none of the martyrs can stand before God and say, I gave up so much, you owe me. No one can say that. The best that we can say is, I did what I was told to do. I did what I was supposed to do. That's the best we can say. That's the best. And so I want to propose to you that having this attitude is actually genius. It's actually genius to have this attitude of, I'm not entitled to anything. How would that affect your relationship with your spouse? How would that affect your relationship with other people, with your coworkers, with your teachers, your classmates, your sisters and brothers? Sisters and brothers. How often have we thought with our brothers, we've thought to ourselves, he owes me and I'm going to get him later. Have you thought that? I may not get him now, but he owes me one and I'm going to get it from him. I'm going to get it from him when he's not expecting it. I'm going to get it from him when it's most painful. Have you thought that thought before? Yes. That's fun to think about, right? No, that's evil. If we can just have the mind, of, I'm not entitled to this, then everything becomes a blessing. Everything becomes a gift. Because if you're not entitled to it, then it's just a gift, and it's just a blessing, and it's just extra, and it's just bonus. Right? And how wonderful would it be if everything that you saw in life and everything that happened in life was a gift and a bonus and a wow, isn't that wonderful? And so, you sell your old iPhone. Wow, someone just gave me $800. Well, you gave them an iPhone. I know, but I got $800. Wow, what a nice gift. Not, I should have gotten 1,000. I can't believe he only gave me 800. Now, I'm not telling anybody don't negotiate badly. Do the best you can. Don't go buy a bad car or pay too much for something. But the attitude is what I'm going for. This guy owes me. That person owes me. How dare they? Maybe it's not about owing me money. Maybe it's about owing me an apology, owing me some respect. I was in line first. Have you ever had that thought? Why are they being waited on? Did they not see that I was here first? How dare they? Well, that ruins your whole day, doesn't it? That sense of, and it's not that the world is evil, it's that you had an expectation. If you would put that aside, Jesus is telling us today how to be happy, to be the kinds of creatures that God made us to be. God made us to be happy and to be happy with Him forever. And so we will set aside our sense of entitlement and our sense of privilege. If you'll put that aside and see everything as a blessing. You got there first, but they waited on 6 other people first. By the time they waited on you, wow, I can't believe I'm getting dinner. How wonderful. What if that were your attitude? I know. Sometimes there are constraints. Sometimes you have someplace to be. Sometimes you're anxious. I promise you, you'll be happy if you set aside the attitude of entitlement, though. Ultimately, when we stand before God, we have no entitlement. Ultimately, when we stand before God, God owes us nothing. Right? So the best we can do is to stand before God and say, everything is yours. Everything came from you. I give everything back to you. Just give me love and grace, and that'll be enough. Amen.